Have you done labs recently and found out your prolactin is high? Or maybe you are just trying to dig a little bit deeper into your case and have a feeling that this can be related to your prolactin levels. If you're experiencing irregular cycles or no menstrual cycle at all, milky discharge from your breast that's not related to breastfeeding, trouble conceiving, or symptoms of low estrogen such as vaginal dryness or low libido, you need to watch this video to learn more about your prolactin and your prolactin levels. If you're new here, welcome to Fertility TV. I'm Dr. Marc Sklar, also known as the fertility expert, and I've been helping couples get pregnant for the last 21 years. That's right, 21 years. And in this video, you're going to learn what prolactin is, what causes high prolactin, how to test for it, and most importantly, what to do if you have high prolactin, as this might be affecting your fertility. Before we get started, a little reminder that if you need my help with your prolactin or any other fertility related issue, you can use the link below to apply for my Hope Fertility program. All right, so we're going to talk about everything having to do with your prolactin levels. And the place for us to start is, well, what is prolactin? Prolactin is a hormone and it is produced in the pituitary gland. Actually, your pituitary gland produces many hormones, one of which is prolactin. You've probably heard of the other hormones that are produced there as well, which are FSH, LH, TSH. Those are the main ones. There's other things that are impacted by the pituitary and its counterpart, the hypothalamus, but those are the main hormones. And the prolactin, which is what we're discussing in this video, is also produced there. Prolactin's main job as a hormone is to increase when you've given birth and you are ready to produce breast milk. So its primary job is for lactation purposes, and that happens after you've delivered a child, hopefully in most situations, right? And so you'll see that number rise in that situation. So if that happens in a normal circumstance, what happens when prolactin rises outside of that situation, right? Outside of lactation purposes. Well, when that happens, then it can disrupt your menstrual cycle, causing it to be either irregular or cause it to go away completely, and in turn also impact your ability to conceive, impacting your fertility. So anytime we talk about any condition, prolactin is no different, then we want to know, well, what could cause it? The most common cause for hyperprolactinemia or high prolactin levels is going to be a pituitary adenoma or a pituitary cyst, which means there's like a little cyst or growth, sometimes referred to as a tumor, that's growing on your pituitary that can be disrupting those levels or impacting those levels. Other things that can cause this is hypothyroidism, right? We talked about before that TSH, which is a thyroid hormone, also produced there. So if your thyroid is not functioning properly, that can impact your prolactin levels. Medication, sometimes taking medications, certain medications can impact your prolactin levels as well. And increased amounts of stress or excessive exercise, I have also found it can impact these levels. So those are the main reasons why we might see your prolactin levels increase. The number one reason, though, that we see in most cases is because there is a little cyst on the pituitary causing your prolactin levels to rise. I want to talk about testing next, but before I do that, I actually almost forgot that there are two other reasons that can be factors in elevated prolactin levels, and that is irregular sleeping habits or just not getting enough sleep, and irregular dietary patterns. So if you're just not eating well, eating the wrong foods, that can also impact your prolactin levels. Okay, so now back to testing. This is probably the biggest piece when we're trying to figure out, right? So just like I often talk, we need to find the root causes to things, and the best ways to find those root causes is through testing. Prolactin is no different. And so we want to make sure that we're doing testing, and there are some key variables that we need to consider when we're doing testing. So prolactin should be done as a blood test. It's a simple blood test to check your prolactin levels. There's a couple key factors that we need to consider, or you need to consider before you go in to have this done. Number one is your prolactin is at its highest in the morning, like, shortly after you wake up. So we want to test your prolactin levels at that time. Okay, so we'd rather do this test earlier in the morning than later in the day. Number two is we want to make sure there's no other thing impacting those levels that could be causing it to be falsely high. And so in turn, we don't want you to eat, we want you to fast for this test to make sure that that's not impacting those numbers. And this last one has to do with falsely rising or causing that to rise your prolactin levels because of stimulation. So because prolactin is a hormone and it is highly sensitive and influenced by intercourse, we want to make sure that you don't have intercourse, you don't have an orgasm, and you don't have any nipple stimulation 2 days prior, at least 2 days prior to doing this test, because all of those things can falsely cause your prolactin levels to be elevated, and we want to make sure that that's not the case. Now, let's just say that you have had your prolactin levels tested with all the factors I just mentioned accounted for, and your levels are elevated. So then the next step would be to repeat that test to make sure that it's accurate. So I would ask you to do another blood test. And then after that, if it's still elevated, then we're going to ask you to do a MRI. The MRI is to rule out and check to make sure that you do not have a cyst on your pituitary, or if you do, to make sure that it is small enough that it's nothing for us to worry about, because the larger that cyst is, the more difficult it is to address, and that becomes more of a variable that needs to be accounted for. So those would be the steps necessary to take on the testing side of things. Okay, so what do we do now that we know that we have this and we've done all the testing, and where do we go from here? So now we've got to do treatment. So the first step is for you to reach out to your OBGYN or your primary physician to discuss medication. Medication is going to be the best route to take because it is the most reliable and the most consistent in terms of lowering your levels, and not just lowering it, but keeping it low. And that will give you the best opportunity for your cycles to regulate and become normal again, and for your hormones to regulate. So hands down, we want to make sure that is the case. Very, very rarely will surgery be required, and that is if that pituitary cyst or pituitary tumor is large. And if it's extremely large, then definitely we're going to have you reach out to a surgeon and coordinate that to determine if it needs to be removed. But that's in rare, rare cases. The other thing that we can't forget, we talked about it early on in this video, which is all of these secondary issues. So if there are other variables, other conditions impacting your prolactin levels, then we want to make sure those are taken care of. So for instance, if you have hypothyroidism and that is not being properly supported and properly regulated, then we want to make sure that that is properly regulated so that that burden is no longer there. And oftentimes that alone can help regulate and bring your prolactin levels into normal range. But we do need to account for both things. And it's likely that you're not just going to treat, let's just say, your hypothyroidism without also treating that elevated prolactin levels. Maybe for a short period of time, if you've never treated your thyroid, then that approach could be taken to lower that, then retest your prolactin levels to see if they're still elevated. If they're lower, then we're good to go. And if not, then you will likely have to get on some medication for that as well. So you know me, I like to treat everything naturally as much as possible, and wherever possible, this is no different. I'm going to start off by going back to my last point, that even though I like to address this as naturally as possible, and I will discuss some things that you can do right now, the most consistent and reliable treatment for hyperprolactinemia is going to be medication, and I'm often recommending that to those couples that I support in my HOPE program. They're sometimes surprised that I'm recommending it, but here's the thing. Just because I prefer to treat things naturally doesn't mean it's always the best way to treat things. And in this case, this is one of those variables where I really prefer that you're on medication, because at least I know that it's going to do the job, and I know that it's going to lower it in the way that I need it lowered. So that's why I lean in that direction. Now, on to the natural things. First and foremost, as I always talk, diet is essential. So if you do not have a healthy diet, I talked about previously that diet can make things more difficult on your pituitary and your prolactin levels. So in this case, we need to make sure that you are eating well, eating sound, whole foods, good amounts of protein and fat. Those things need to be in your diet. Second, the biggest factor that I have seen that impacts your prolactin levels when there is not any, actually, even if there is assist on your pituitary, I find this to impact it and make it more difficult, is stress. So stress management is going to be at the top of the list of things that you can do to support your pituitary and your prolactin level. I want to make sure that you are doing things on a daily basis to manage that. That might be exercise in some days, like moderate exercise. We don't want to overdo it. And other days, that could be meditation or yoga. Whatever it's going to be, we need to make sure that you are managing your stress. That could also be, for many of you, it could be painting or playing music, whatever it might be. However you're able to disconnect and manage your stress, I want to make sure that you're incorporating it. And last but not least, in this specific category is exercise. I know I already mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again as an isolated thing. I want to make sure you're exercising 3 to 5 times a week. I really prefer 4 to 5 times a week for at least 30 to 45 minutes with moderate exercise. It could be as easy as just going for a nice, good walk every day. So we want to make sure we're working that into your lifestyle practices, and all of those things, as simple as they might be, are going to be really, really beneficial to help you regulate your prolactin levels. All right, if you're ready to get a personalized fertility plan and coaching, head on over to marksklar.com/discovery call to speak to a real human on my team so we can identify if having me as your fertility coach is the right next step for you. I'm going to also leave you with another video about cortisol levels and stress and how it can be impacting your fertility. You can check that out below. And until the next video, stay fertile.